Ladies and gentlemen, in the ever-intense world of professional tennis, the baseline isn't the only place where sparks fly. At the Bad Homburg Open, what was expected to be a competitive clash between Kazakhstan's Yulia Putintseva and Greece's Maria Sakkari turned into yet another chapter in what is fast becoming one of tennis's most talked about sagas. Once again, Yulia Putintseva has found herself at the epicenter of post-match controversy, and this time, the flames burned brighter than ever. It began innocently enough, with the players trading powerful ground strokes and razor-sharp returns in a match filled with grit and nerve. Sakkari edged out Putintseva 7-5, 7-6, claiming victory in a tight two-set battle that left both players physically drained but emotionally lit. Then came the handshake, or perhaps more accurately, the slap. A quick, dismissive tap of the hand from Putintseva, followed by an immediate pivot and a cold walk-off. No eye contact, no words of respect, no gesture of sportsmanship. And Maria Sakkari was having none of it. She called out, visibly frustrated, "Respect me like a human being." And in true Putintseva fashion, the Kazakh firebrand fired back with sarcasm wrapped in a mock curtsy, "I was being like a human being. Look at yourself." Words flew. Tension crackled. Even after the chair umpire tried to mediate, the exchange spilled into the changeover area. Sakkari marched over to Putintseva's bench, clearly still seething. And then came the ultimate dagger from the Greek star, "Nobody likes you." That was the moment the world knew, this wasn't just another icy handshake. This was personal. This was the latest in a long, frost-covered history of handshakes gone wrong for Putintseva. Because if there's one thing Yulia Putintseva has mastered besides her signature drop shot, it's leaving a trail of drama in her wake. Ask Yelena Ostapenko, who in 2016 fell to Putintseva in Beijing, and was met not with a handshake, but a feral roar and balls being blasted into the stands. That celebration wasn't just confident. It was combative. Ostapenko responded with a glance that said it all, and their handshake. A non-existent flick of fingers. Fast forward to the 2019 Australian Open. Barbara Strykova, seeded and seasoned, met a surging Putintseva in the early rounds. The result? A straight sets win for Yulia. But after the final point, instead of sportsmanship, she served up a firestorm. Another quick slap at the net. Another discontented opponent yelling in frustration. And once again, an umpire caught in the crossfire. But it didn't stop there. Later that same year, at the Nuremberg Open, Putintseva faced Germany's Annalena Fredsam. The crowd expected intensity, but what they got was outright defiance. After winning in 3 sets, Putintseva walked straight past Fredsam, bypassing her completely in favor of the umpire. The German had to literally chase her down for a handshake. The audience booed. The umpire stepped in. And eventually, under pressure, Putintseva reluctantly extended her hand. That incident could have been an isolated one. But for Putintseva, it was part of a pattern. In 2018, she clashed with Monica Niculescu in Miami. The match was intense, the crowd engaged, but the post-match moment was pure chill. No eye contact, no warmth, just a robotic clap of hands and a swift exit. And a year before that, against Poland's Magda Linette, another handshake debacle. The pattern was undeniable. And while handshake snubs may seem minor to some, in tennis, a sport built on etiquette and mutual respect, they speak volumes. But Putintseva didn't stop at snubs. At the 2019 Australian Open, following a second-round loss to Belinda Bencic, she once again showed her distaste for the ceremonial pleasantries. She went for the usual swift handshake with Bencic but outright ignored the umpire. The crowd responded with boos. Putintseva's answer? A wag of the finger, followed by raising her middle finger to the stands as she left. That middle finger became a symbol of her disregard for crowd decorum. And it wasn't the first time she made such a gesture, nor would it be the last time she dismissed an umpire. 12 months earlier, in another Australian Open exit, this time against Romania's Ana Bogdan, Putintseva taunted the official with a fake handshake. Hand extended, smile curled, and then the hand was pulled back before it could be touched. A final jab to close a frustrating loss. These weren't moments of frustration. They were statements. Unapologetic, confrontational, and entirely Putintseva. And then came the incident that truly turned the tide of public opinion, the US Open, 2023. The opponent was Jasmine Paolini. But the moment that went viral had nothing to do with forehands or rallies. It was a slow-motion nightmare involving a young ball girl. As Putintseva stood in position, she let 2 tennis balls bounce off her body without acknowledging the ball girl who had tossed them. She stood motionless, eyes blank, as the balls thudded softly against her. The crowd was stunned. The internet erupted. Boris Becker, never one to mince words, called it terrible behavior. Renee Stubbs, a respected voice in the game, labeled it disrespectful and obnoxious. Fans across the globe echoed the sentiment, shocked by what they saw as a cruel and unnecessary moment of detachment. Eventually, Putintseva took to social media with an apology. She claimed it wasn't directed at the ball girl but rather an emotional reaction to losing a key point. She explained that she was caught in her thoughts and frustration. But for many, the apology came too late and felt too hollow. The public saw the footage. The blank stare. The lack of acknowledgement. The total disregard. And in that moment, Yulia Putintseva wasn't just a fierce competitor. She became, for many, the poster child for poor sportsmanship in modern tennis. Of course, there are those who defend her. Those who point to her passion, her fire, her unapologetic authenticity. In a sport often burdened by protocol and polished personalities, Putintseva stands out like a spark in a gasoline storm. She is raw. She is unfiltered. She is not afraid to be hated. But there's a cost to playing the villain. Because in every sport, rivalries may fuel the crowd, but respect sustains the game. And without respect, for opponents, officials, and the people who make the show possible, what remains is noise. The confrontation with Maria Sakkari was just the latest echo of a career defined as much by controversy as by competition. Perhaps one day, Yulia Putintseva will redefine her narrative. Perhaps the handshakes will be warm. The eyes will meet. The applause will come without jeers. But until then, she walks a lonely road, lined with booze, bitterness, and headlines that rarely mention her tennis first. Because in the end, it's not just about how you play the game. It's about how you leave